Philadephia. We have a problemo. Philadelphia. So let us discuss. Now the question, did the Hawks win this game or did the Sixers lose the game? This is obvious. This is all on Philly. Now, my thoughts on this, you've got the denominator, barrel, and red tag. And we will tie all of these things together into an adequate Maller monologue. Now, you get what you pay for. You get what you anticipate in life when you make certain decisions. There are a trickle-down level of effect when you make certain moves. The 76ers, for example, had decided last offseason that they needed a change in the coaching room. And they could have hired anyone. It was a very attractive job. Big market, superstar players, a city that was thirsty for a winning NBA team to get over the hump. And the 76ers, with a thorough job search, decided on Doc Rivers as the coach they wanted with open arms. They wanted to hire Doc Rivers. They were braggadocious about the hire, overlooking the many failures on Doc's resume, and there are lots from his time with the Clippers. And they're like, hey, listen, this guy's going to be in Philadelphia, and he's going to be great. And it's more of the Clipper problem than a Doc Rivers problem. Oh, yeah? I hope you enjoyed the full Doc Rivers playoff experience. That was a classical, simpatico-type performance in the postseason for a Doc Rivers-coached postseason team. We know the margins are thin in the postseason, but very few coaches have done less with more than Doc Rivers has done in the NBA. We saw it for years with the Clippers, those great Lob City teams with Chris Paul and Blake Griffin and DeAndre Jordan and others, and they continually went belly up in big games, collapsing against teams they had more talent than. And it happened yet again, but not with the Clipper uniform. No, Doc Rivers is coaching teams wearing the 76ers laundry. But what is the common denominator? That's right. Ding, 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 ding. The good doctor. Doc Rivers coach teams gag on hairballs in the postseason. It's what happens. It's what happens. You come to embrace it. You come to accept it. In this case, they choked on the cheesesteak. Doc Rivers has 29 losses with a chance to clinch a playoff series, the most losses by a head coach in NBA history. We've already documented over the time we've been here that Doc Rivers is the greatest gag artist when it comes to blowing a 3-1 lead as a coach in a playoff series. But his .341 winning percentage in clinching playoff games of playoff series is the worst all time among coaches with 20 or more opportunities, and it's not even close. Doc is in a class all by himself, and a class that you don't want to be in because you're the one wearing the dunce cap. Now, part B of this, Doc Rivers deserves the full brunt of the criticism. He's a likable guy. He doesn't usually get it because the media likes him. The NBA media kowtowed Doc Rivers. It's a popularity contest, and I get it. He's a good quote. Doc's the kind of guy you would want as the master of ceremonies. Now, you want Doc Rivers out there, and you want him to MC your event, but you don't want him coaching your team in a closeout game, certainly not a Game 7. But he was brought in under the false pretext of the missing link. Brett Brown was blamed for past failures, and Coach Brown was exiled and excommunicated. Trust the process. We don't have a problem with that, but if you're going to go out and hand-pick your new coach, and you're Daryl Morey, the smartest man in the NBA, Daryl Morey, just ask him. He'll tell you how smart he is. It's, in this case, hiring Doc Rivers. I mean, what are you thinking? You think that was just the Clipper stank? No, it wasn't the Clipper stank. It was the Doc Rivers stank. And if the Clippers had gotten rid of this bum several years ago, they would have already advanced to a conference finals, which they now have. Thank God Doc is gone coaching that team. His teams, we mentioned the common denominator. Doc Rivers coach teams, the players do not perform in pressure situations. Players that have reputations of being good players. They do not rise up with Doc Rivers as coach. And I'm not a big believer that coaching matters all that much in the NBA, but when you got a bad one, it does matter. It does become a problem, and Doc Rivers is on that list. It makes it all the more amazing, as we've said in previous episodes, that the Boston Celtics were able to win a championship with Paul Pierce and Ray Allen, Kevin Garnett, and those guys, that they were able to win with Doc Rivers. That makes it all the more impressive that they overcame this guy as their coach and were able to win a championship. But as far as looking around the Sixers locker room, and while Doc gets most of the blame, it's really like shooting fish in a barrel. It's like shooting fish in a barrel. Ben Simmons, has there ever been a more phony star player than Ben Simmons? And we were on this ahead of most people. We said this a couple years ago. Liability. Late in games, Ben Simmons is a liability. He cannot play in crunch time. He plays like he's a gutless puke in those crucial moments at the end of games. And the Sixers tried. They played him most of the fourth quarter in Game 7. And how did that work out? The typical Ben Simmons package, which is equal parts anxiety, fear, panic, confusion, all those things set in. And Simmons attempted no field goals in the fourth quarter. Now, I understand that you don't have to be a ball hog, and there's like a fine balance between being the hero guy, playing hero ball. What is the opposite? Like Ben Simmons has created a whole new genre in the NBA. Most of the time, it's the ball hog. Like we goof on Russell Westbrook because he shoots the ball every single time. He doesn't share the ball much late in games, tries to take over and be the hero. But what do you call Ben Simmons? In the 7 games, he shot in the fourth quarter 3 shots in the 7 games in the fourth quarter. And there were several of those games, in the last 3, he didn't even take a shot. And congratulations to Ben Simmons. You think of inept foul shooting. And the 76ers guard, Ben Simmons, he just shot 34% from the charity stripe, 34% in this playoff series, which is the lowest foul shooting in a single playoff in NBA history. Minimum 70 attempts. Ben Simmons has done the impossible. He just had a worse postseason shooting from the charity stripe than Shaquille O'Neal. Shaquille O'Neal's record has been broken. Shaq, the Hack-a-Shaq, the man they created a term for, Hack-a-Shaq. He shot 37.4%, and Ben Simmons 3 percentage points and then some below where Shaq was at his low water mark. And he's below Shaq. Ben Simmons below Shaq. He's below Wilt Chamberlain. He's the worst of the worst. And while Joel Embiid, we like Joel Embiid, he continues to be exactly what Clint Capella of the Hawks said he was. He gave the scouting report out, and it showed up in several of the games Philadelphia lost at home. Joel Embiid has fatigue issues late in games. And so Philadelphia losing 3 times to Atlanta in their own gymnasium. Holy Doc Rivers, Batman. I mean, you talk about pie in the face. My goodness, that's not a tasty cake. That's a stinky cake is what it is. All right, now last word here. So the Hawks will play the Bucks in the Eastern Conference Finals. And this guarantees to be a ratings debacle, but I'm not a television executive, and I don't work for the NBA, so I don't really care. If I did work for television, and if I was an advertiser, I would be worried. But the Hawks doing it because they took advantage of the extreme tight-tookus syndrome that Philadelphia suffered for. Those guys on the Sixers, they needed by the end of the game there, Game 7, they needed a defibrillator. Someone named, as we said, Kevin Herter, a totally unknown, had a totally tubular performance. And Atlanta wins with Trae Young having a John Starks-like performance in a big game, drowning for 75% of the night. He took 16 shots. He was 2 of 16, 1 of 8 from three-point range over the first 3 quarters. He had 11 points. That was over the first 75% of the game, 2 of 16 He made one shot in the first half. And then in the fourth quarter, Trae Young, he wasn't great. He was 3 out of 7, but he made some big shots and 10 points down the stretch. And so Atlanta moves on. So you got 1 star versus 1 star. Milwaukee's got 1 star, Giannis Antetokounmpo. The Hawks have 1 star in Trae Young. With more time to break that down. But let's circle back to the Sixers. The winds of change will be blowing in Philadelphia, just like the Sixers blew and sucked in this series. Philadelphia is going to demand heads roll, that there's accountability, and I would expect several big names to be placed into a blender and hit the on button and bland. Ben Simmons is at the very top of the list. Ben Simmons will be tossed on the auctioning block, guaranteed. Think of this as a red tag sale. And Ben Simmons can be yours. You can buy him for a song. He can be bought for a song and a dance. And you'll hear his name tossed all around the rumor mill over the NBA offseason. Philadelphia will see what they can get for Simmons, if that's a viable option. Are they going to try again to reinvent the wheel? And then Doc Rivers is not guaranteed to return either. Doc's the guy that talks the talk, but his teams rarely walk the walk. And that's the reality of the situation. And so that is where we are right now. All right, let's hear now in the locker room some of the post-game festivities here. And a soundbite for the ages. Doc Rivers asked point blank whether or not Ben Simmons can be a point guard for a championship team. And let's just say, Doc, you'll hear the question and the answer. He stuttered a bit.
Doc, do you think Ben Simmons can still be a point guard for a championship team like the one you guys want to become?
Yeah, David, I don't know that question or the answer to that right now. So I don't know the answer to that.
What do you, when you say get in the gym with him, what needs to be done? I mean, obviously, this is fresh.
Yeah, I mean, that's between Ben and I.
Yeah. All right. So Doc, he didn't say no. He just tap danced around it. He tap danced around. Here's more from Doc Rivers, who's become the master. He's like a Jedi Knight in recent years of exiting stage left in the second round of the playoffs. And you can't blame the Clippers anymore. You can't blame, the curse of the Clippers, all that bull crap the media comes up with. You can't blame that because they're in Philadelphia. There's no curse on the Sixers. They've had good teams over the years. Here's Doc Rivers, and you'll hear the question and the answer on his situation.
Second year in a row where your teams have been in good spots in the second round and it's not gone your way. Is there an element, of self-reflection that has to be done in that? And, what are the lessons to be learned for you? That
we lost and we want to win. If it was the same team, Austin, I would actually justify that question. But since it's 2 different teams, listen, this team last year got swept in the first round. We had a chance to go to the championship, to the Eastern Finals. I'm not going to make this into a negative year.
Now, what about you, Doc? The question was more about you. I think to me that was more about Doc Rivers than it was the Sixers as a whole.